thank the Lord, I think we're here. Gosh, I'm here at last. That feeling when you log on at 2 minutes to 6, knowing that you said you'd be here, and YouTube says, oh, by the way, we changed everything. Oh, there's a whole new system. You have to link here and click there and do this and do that. Oh, it's all changed. So, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. How are we all doing? It's lovely to see all your messages. So hello, Penny. It's good to see you. So, I am a little way behind because I'm having to stream through Zoom again. It appears as though I can't just go live anymore. So anyway, enough of my problems. Can you hear me properly? Because I want to make sure, because somebody said they couldn't hear me. And there's a bit of a delay, so it's going to be a few seconds before I see your message saying whether you can hear me or not. But nobody's saying that they can't hear me, so I'm going to assume, I think, that you can. I'm getting a couple of yeses. All right, so I'm going to, good, loud and clear. Good, thank you very much. All right, so we are a week, well, for me, we're a week into lockdown. Tell me how you're doing. How are you feeling? Are you staying home? Are you feeling good? Hello, Cheeky Monkey says, I can hear you and your voice is sounding so strong. Yes, I had a voice lesson today, and Mark said he was very pleased and things are moving along and my voice is getting stronger. Doing this is helping me practice because I don't usually speak for like an hour at a time. So this is very good for me to practice, but I also have my tea so I can get a little break from time to time. So I haven't got much of an agenda for this, not that this is a big meeting. So you tell me, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Or we can make this just a general Q&A. But generally, I just want to be here and make sure that we're all together and we all feel good and we all feel positive. Somebody's saying, I saw it go past and say, I'm feeling a bit trapped. That's understandable. If you're not used to this, it's understandable to feel like a bit hemmed in as we get used to this. Not locked down because the teen has to work. Yeah, it's tough when you'd like to be in lockdown, but things get in the way. As in, you get it, you know you should stay home, but you know we've still got to get food, or we still might have to go and get medication. I had a difficult one this week because a week ago, just before I went into lockdown, my boiler broke down. So I've had no heat or hot water for a week. And so yesterday I had little choice but to, well, I did have a choice, but I decided to take the risk and let 3 workmen come into the house and do a major job and replace my boiler. So it was a day of enormous disruption. I had to remove everything I had to like close off everything except the route right up to my boiler on the 3rd floor, close all the other doors, because I have 3rd floor because I have a house that's a very small footprint, but very tall, 3 floors. So I cleared the route all the way up to the boiler, removed everything that wasn't nailed down. I cleaned one bathroom near the door and was like, this is your bathroom. I have cleaned it, so in case I've got it, you are less likely to get it. Let them just use that bathroom. And Yeah, they didn't care. They didn't give a monkeys. They didn't wash their hands even after going to the bathroom, let alone anything else. And in any case, we were replacing the boiler, so the water was switched off for most of the day. So I just like hid in the living room and just let them get on with it, and had to just go around the end of the day and just clean everything and just like disinfect, clean everything, all the door handles. So now, just to be careful, I am in my house and yet being careful to like open doors with elbows and just leave it for a few days, because I know the virus can survive on surfaces for a few days. So we're all kind of doing what we can under the circumstances, and it's not always possible to be perfect. So I understand if you're finding, there's people in the household who have to go out and work, people who are in healthcare or who work in grocery stores even, who have to get out there and work still. So it's a case of just doing as much as you can and being careful as much as you can, but having to just be okay with not being perfect. You can do what you can do. Let's see. The Bavarian government imposed curfew today. That's good to hear. Yeah. Isolation is ideal. It looks as though, yes, I am warm enough now. Thank you very much. The new boiler is fantastic. They've put the new hot water tank up in the roof. It was in a cupboard before on the 3rd floor. So I've like acquired a cupboard because they've taken this huge old boiler out and they've put in just this box that's up on the wall. So I have this huge cupboard now. So I'm like, woohoo, I can fill this with whatever, with fabric, I guess. So yes, thank you very much. I'm very warm. I had a hot shower last night, my first hot shower in a week. I know how Baptists feel now. I feel reborn, and I have accepted my plumber as my Lord and Saviour. And so everything, all is well again. So this was not easy doing isolation with no heat and hot water, but that is fixed now. So, and as well as all of that, I just felt like if I do get sick, that's going to be really hard with no heating and no hot water. So, I took the risk. So sometimes in the middle of this, you have to take calculated risks and just do the best you can. So anyway. Yes, Fran, I work in a call center and I'm classed as an essential worker, so she's still working. Yes, very grateful to everybody who's working in supermarkets right now. Yeah, it's not easy. Actually, I found out, do you want to hear the whole thing about toilet paper? Does anybody want to hear the true story, supposedly as true as I'm aware of why everybody has gone nuts over toilet paper? It is so silly. Obviously, it's so silly. But does anybody know how the toilet paper thing started? I found this out last night. I have a friend in Australia who told me how it started. So, yes, it began in Australia. And I'd heard that it was something to do with Australia gets its toilet paper from China and there was going to be a shortage. But no, that's not true. That was rubbish. It turned out the reason behind the toilet paper shortage was that there was apparently a reporter in Australia who went into a grocery store, a supermarket, and stood in the middle of the store and did a report about this virus thing. It's coming, and here's what to expect. We might have to expect that there may be shortages in some household items. That's all he said. But guess what he was standing in front of at the time? He just so happened to be standing in front of the toilet paper aisle. No mention of toilet paper was ever made, and yet Australia saw toilet paper and panicked and bought up all the toilet paper. This then spread to the US and UK and across the world. So the toilet paper thing is because of one TV news reporter in Australia. So I have heard. As far as I know, that's true. And that is from a close friend of mine in Sydney. So thank you for that, Woody. So I mean, it's funny, it's silly, but it's also, I think it's it's not, Lana's saying people are dumb. I don't think it's dumb. I think it's psychology. It's how people react. I mean, people have been saying, how can people be so selfish over, the panic buying and all the rest of it? It's not people being assholes. It's not people being stupid. It's what naturally happens. It's the psychology of, I guess, anxiety. When you are in a situation that is so uncertain, you go into this survival instinct mode. So you're going into survival instinct. You're going, oh God, I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know what's going to happen. And you're looking ahead to see, how am I going to survive in this situation? You're going into like fight or flight. And so you're going to grab onto anything that's like, oh God, I've got to get ahead of this. So the panic buying is not people being stupid or people being selfish in a way. When you think about it rationally, it seems selfish to go out and start panic buying stuff, but it's hard to resist that instinct. It's your survival instinct kicking in. You want to protect you and yours in a survival situation. So it's easy to get angry at people for doing that, but it's just the psychology of anxiety, I guess. I mean, I'm no psychologist, but it's a stage that we go through. So I was in California in October when they had the forest fires, they had the wildfires, and there's a huge part of Northern California that is quite rural. I mean, people outside of the US, outside of California, think of California as being like San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego, but in fact, it's quite a rural state outside of that, and I mean, a lot of it's farming country, and particularly in Northern California, there's a lot of countryside and a lot of woods, and because they tend to have very dry weather, the woodland gets tinder dry, and when you have very warm weather and power lines and a lot of very dry wood, that's when these wildfires start. So they were having this problem that they were having wildfires that just started and wouldn't stop, and it seemed like there was a problem with the electricity company perhaps not maintaining their lines well enough. And so to protect people and keep the fires from getting out of hand, they decided to shut off the power for like 4 or 5 days. And it was planned in advance. So everybody knew this was coming. And it was, there were like emergency alerts coming up on people's phones. I mean, literally, you would get this sudden alert, like, I don't remember what it sounded like. I was about to imitate what it sounded like, but I don't remember. But even on my phone, because I guess my phone knew where I was, I would get these alerts through. And in the first days before this power outage was going to happen, people were going into the grocery stores and panic buying like crazy. I mean, there were empty shelves, and there were stories. I wasn't there during the worst of it, but there were stories about how people were panic buying and being mean to each other and like grabbing for stuff. And that was for 1 day. The funny thing was that didn't continue. When the power actually went off that day, the next day, the mood completely changed. Everybody then going into that supermarket, same supermarket, and this was a story I heard from the staff in there, the day before the power went off, panic, chaos, carnage. When the power had gone off the next day, everybody got very calm and it was very quiet, and people were helping each other and offering and talking and encouraging and supporting. So I think, again, I'm not a psychologist, but I think it's just a phase that we go through at the beginning of these things when everybody realizes that something is wrong and starts to panic and tries to figure out how they can mitigate what's going on, figure out how they can protect themselves and their families. And that, in this day and age, translates to panic buying. You know, it's like trying to get supplies in, trying to make sure you're going to make it through this. But after that, I think you're going to find over the next few days and weeks that that panic is going to just settle into this very quiet sense of looking out for each other. And you're going to see the helpers coming through, as Mr. Rogers used to say. You're going to see people helping each other. And I encourage you to look out for that. Don't look too hard for, I mean, we're anxious enough. Don't start looking for things to make you angry about people who are not observing the lockdown, or people who are being seemingly insensitive, or people who don't get it yet, people who don't get how serious it is and just keep blowing it out. Oh, it's all been blown out of proportion, and just going about their daily lives. Don't look for things to make you angry. Look for like Mr. Rogers used to say, look for the helpers. Or I think his mother used to say to him, in any crisis situation, look for the helpers. Look for, this is a time that perhaps brings out the worst in people in a way for a while, but it also brings out the best in people. So look for people who are helping, and that will restore your faith in human nature. Yeah. Mary Sindrich says, when people see scarcity, they often buy things that aren't essential, but make them feel like they're doing something. That's a great point. When you're going into this period of anxiety, that's also part of the psychology. It's like, I've got to do something. What am I going to do? I have to, and that translates to, well, I better hoard supplies. So it's just part of the psychology of it. So try to resist it in yourself. You know, buy maybe 5 to 10% more than usual, just in case. But it's okay. It's just how the psychology works. Yes, light workers. Look for the light workers. Wonderful. Yeah. Joelle says the shelves will empty when all buy just a tiny bit over what we usually buy. Then the word gets out, the shelves are emptying because people are hoarding, and then more people start hoarding. So yeah, it's not one group of people who are stupid. It's that somebody starts panicking. It's like, you know, in a crowd of maybe, you could probably see it in the animal kingdom, in a flock of birds. One bird gets spooked, all the birds get spooked, and all of them fly off. You know, it's just that sort of situation where it's sort of contagious. The fear is contagious. And I mean, that's the real danger here. Fear is more contagious than the disease is. So, you know, I saw a great a sort of meme quote card at the beginning of this before we realized it was getting serious, but it still holds, and it says, fear is a virus, take precautions. So, you know, be careful to manage your mental state. You know, look for calm, look for the helpers. So, looking at your comments again. Okay. Some more steps forward. Can we light a candle for her, for their partner? Yes, we certainly can. I love going out to everybody who's having struggles right now, everybody who may be sick, anybody who may be on the front lines and exposed to risk. Just keep them in your thoughts, and you know, good thoughts help. Excuse me going quiet while I read comments, trying to make this a two-way conversation. Jacqueline, unrelated to the current chat, is there any chance of opening up the next round of foundations revealed sooner so that those of us not yet in can start using the resources there? Yes, there is. We had already planned that we were going to open up Foundations Revealed on April the 4th. That was the date we advertised. That has been put back a little bit, partly because of all of this sort of getting in the way and slowing me down a bit. Also because I was a little bit worried for a while that it might start to seem inappropriate to be selling something at this time. I think that's probably a bit too, that's me being afraid. I mean, it's a bad idea to try to profiteer. You know, I'm not going to start going out and buying hand sanitizer and ramping up the price and reselling it. That's profiteering. I don't think there's anything wrong with selling something now in this period, as long as I do it sensitively. So I am getting a lot of people saying, when are you going to open up again? Because now I have all this time. Now I can use your membership. So yes, we are still going to do it. We are going to go ahead. We're getting the free workshop ready now, because the way we launch Foundations Revealed when we have an enrolment period is we do a four-part really, a three-part workshop with all the Foundations Revealed mentors, and that's free for everybody. So we do a big free workshop so everybody learns something and everybody gets something cool. And then at the end, I will then invite you, if you want to, and if you're in a position to join. So that is still going to go ahead. It may go back a little bit just because we've been, we've been delayed a bit by all of this. It all depends right now on how quickly Bernadette can edit the videos, the video workshop. So she's working on that now. If we can do it in time, it will start next week, but it will start as soon as possible. It won't be hosted on YouTube, but it will be, I will put links on here in the community tab. So you will hear about that. The quickest way to find out, yes, I will explain what membership is. I've lost my train of thought. If there should be, if not below this video, then below any of my other videos, there is, sorry, Bernadette, yes, she's working on it. If you look under any of my other videos, not these live videos, because they don't put the description in automatically, but if you click down to the description on my other videos, there's a link to the mailing list. If you're not already on my mailing list, that is the place to be. If you click and join the mailing list, you will be the first to know about the workshop, and you'll be sent all the links and be kept up to date. So you'll hear all about it. So what is the membership? Somebody asked what the membership is. So most of the cost tubers, you know, or many of them, Bernadette, for example, YouTube is her job. So that is what she does for a living. And she makes her living off the advertising and off the sponsorships. For me, it's different. I have this business called Foundations Revealed, and we have had, that has been going for 12 years. And what it is a community, a closed community where you can learn more about historical sewing. We're famous for corset making. And for many years, we've been like just the sort of cutting edge in corset making, but we really teach all sorts of historical sewing, couture sewing, tailoring. I mean, we've been around 12 years, so we have a lot of content on that site now. So it has, it's a site with a library, a community, live workshops every month. So it's a place where if you are wanting to get better at sewing, and particularly at costuming, cosplay, LARPing, if you're history bounding, any of that, it's a place I created so that there would be a place for specifically learning about sewing that relates to historical sewing. So not just, I mean, there are lots of places online where you can learn to sew. I mean, thinking 12 years ago as well, lots of places where you can learn how to make a throw cushion, a tote bag, an A-line skirt, you know, a dress, a simple A-line dress. Lots of places where you can learn about modern sewing, but I wanted to create a really cool community where you learn about historical sewing, where all of us quirky, geeky kids who are into that weird historical stuff can learn our kind of sewing. Because frankly, like, the standard normal modern sewing to me is kind of boring. It kind of bores the pants off me. I want to learn about corsets and bustle dresses and you know, all the strange historical stuff. So that's what I created. So I like to think of it, it's kind of an online school for sewing, for historical sewing. I like to think of it as the Hogwarts of sewing, but I mean, I can't directly use that in my marketing because I think Hogwarts is probably, you know, a trademark or copyrighted. But basically, I think of it as the Hogwarts of sewing. So if you're one of those weird kids who's into historical sewing, Foundations is the place where you'll find the community for you with mentors who can help you get it right. So we have Barbara Paisendorfer from Royal Black Couture, who you've seen on Bernadette's pad stitching video. She's one of our mentors. She gives people individual help and support with their sewing. We also have Luca Costigliolo for the School of Historical Dress, who is basically the world authority on Victorian women's dress. And we have Loana O'Shea of Van Yanis, who is a self-taught seamstress, but I hired her as a mentor because she is so skilled at what she does and such a loving, encouraging teacher. She is absolutely there for beginners particularly and loves to just share her experience. So there you are. That's who said something about the houses. There's somebody mentioned SL Piazza says, ooh, can we get sewing houses? Did somebody leak something? Because since we have started talking about Foundations being the Hogwarts of sewing, we have actually started thinking about doing houses. So we've designed 4 houses, not related to the Hogwarts houses, but we are going to have houses soon. With a membership to Foundations Revealed, yes, you also get a membership to your Wardrobe Unlocked. Yes, we used to have 2 separate memberships. Foundations Revealed was all the corsets and foundation wear and all the underpinnings, and your Wardrobe Unlocked was all the costumes. And there were 2 separate memberships, but you could get a discount for joining both. But we've just combined them now because everybody basically joined both anyway. So Foundations Revealed has now become the name for the combined membership of everything. So yes, you get a membership of your Wardrobe Unlocked as well. And we're actually close to creating a new upgraded website where all of that will be now on one website. So yeah. Yes, Bernadette and I are in fact the same person, 20 years apart. Let's see. Yes, we have a sorting hat. There'll be a quiz. Basically, we've designed a quiz that you'll go through, but we'll sort you into, I don't know whether any of you saw the announcement last night of the competition winners, but you'll have seen that in the competition, we divide people into categories so that when you enter the competition, it isn't, I do announce that I go live. During the competition, we sort you into 5 skill categories. So that the beginners aren't competing against the pros. It wouldn't be fair to put everybody in together because everybody's got a different skill level. So we divide you into 5 houses. So when you, in the future, not yet, but in the future, when you join Foundations, you'll have to do 2 quizzes. One will sort you into your skill category. So it will tell you whether you're beginner, apprentice, hang on, I'm the other way around. So whether you're beginner, apprentice, intermediate, experienced or advanced. And there will be another quiz that will sort you into a house. So there will be Hogwarts style houses as well. Let's see, how do you recommend getting started on dressing vintage? That's a great question. You can get started by, don't think that you've got to start dressing vintage by just getting up one morning and suddenly I'm dressing all vintage. It doesn't happen like that. It's a transition. So you start generally dressing in a way that looks a little bit more vintage, but isn't really. So you're wearing your modern clothes. You might get a new accessory or a new jacket or a new waistcoat, one thing that you start transitioning and looking a little bit more vintage and a little bit more and a little bit more. So yeah, Rachel Maxey. Rachel Maxey is a great person to follow for how how to start dressing in a more vintage way. It's really about, you know, thrift shops and looking for stuff. Look at a lot of images, get interested and follow accounts that do vintage dress. So you just start getting an eye for what looks about right, what look that you're looking for. So I like, you know, I like that look with the shirts and the cravats and the ties and the waistcoats and jackets. So you just start getting things from charity shops, even vintage, like Goodwill shops, that just look a little bit more vintagey, and you just start sort of transitioning a little bit. Yeah, sense and sensibility patterns. Jenny Chance is saying, yes, you start with accessories. So you start with little things like, I mean, these suspenders are kind of modern actually, but they work. And I really liked, I started seeing in various places that that kind of vintage looking suspenders have these buttons on. So when I saw a pair of suspenders with these buttons on, I was like, I'm getting those. So, you know, and this is a vintage shirt. These are the pants that everybody said in the costume college video were, everybody wanted to know about this. These were bought. These are like Emmy of Sweden. So, you know, some things you buy. So in fact, I can turn you around and show you my wardrobe. So things like, you've seen me wear this waistcoat a lot. That is from a thrift store. That is not, I didn't, everybody thinks I make it. I made it. So, I mean, part of the fun of it is starting to buy things that look like you made them. So I'm kind of looking, there's such a delay, I can't see whether I've got the camera pointing in the right direction, so I'm looking at the screen as I try to figure out. This was from a vintage shop in London that is very focused on really good quality men's tailoring. It's called, if anybody's in London, it's called Levison's, it's off Brick Lane. So that was like a genuine 30s waistcoat. But, you know, you start by going to a thrift store and getting something that looks reasonably like, you know. So it's all about just, and, you know, you just kind of gradually upgrade one thing at a time. Yeah, Constance says, it was a jacket that pushed me into dressing how I wanted. And it was a jacket from a fast fashion store, wasn't it, Constance? Okay, so Amanda says, do you talk historical cutting of fabric? Both of you talked about how expensive fabric costs. I was wondering if cutting fabric is key as well in historical sewing. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question, to be honest. Just explain a little bit more. My voice is so much stronger when I feel passionate. Yes, that's true. Sometimes it gets better and I don't even notice. It's when I feel confident. It's like when you saw in my voice video that when I'm on stage, I get more confident. It's part of the reason is not just that I'm on stage, but those places when I'm on stage, I'm usually with my group of entrepreneur friends in Launch Club. And that is such a supportive group that, sorry, I just glance at the chat and I get distracted by something and lose my train of thought. So I'll, when I'm amongst Launch Club, I get really empowered and confident because it's such a supportive group. And that's what I try to model at Foundations and with you. So my voice gets stronger when I get more confident, when I get more passionate. And also when the pitch of my voice goes higher, it's fine. So if I suddenly say, oh, really? It's right there. So it's just, but it is getting stronger and stronger. I had a lesson with Mark today, who you saw in the voice video, and we did it via Skype, and he's really pleased with how things are going. It's getting much better. So I'm looking, yeah, YouTube is a stage too. That's very true. So, I mean, I'm doing pretty good here. How long have we been on? 34 minutes. I've been talking for 34 minutes. This is my first sip of tea, so I should have brought my Foundations Real mug up. Yes, praise and support and affirm each other, said Jenny. Yes, that is, I mean, that's the lesson there. If you notice, my voice is really a reflection of how I'm feeling right now. It went away because I didn't feel confident or whatever, you know. There was probably more. I talked about an ex-partner in that video. There was probably more than one reason why my voice went. But if you take my voice as a barometer of how I'm feeling and how confident I'm feeling, that's a good lesson. If I feel much more confident and suddenly I feel fine when I'm amongst a very supportive group of people, then let's create a supportive group of people, you know. And this is something that I'm hoping that you get from me, that as much as I have an audience and Jenny has an audience and Bernadette has an audience, you have an audience too. Even if your audience is just your partner, your mum and dad, your dog, your family, your close friends, your 5 followers on Instagram, you have a following too. You have an audience. So this is a time when you can be a leader for them. You know, you can step into a role where you can be a helper. As you know, quoting Mr. Rogers again, you can be a helper just by spreading a sense of calm among the people you know. Yeah. So you have an opportunity, however small your audience is, you have an audience. And you can have an influence on that audience right now. And you are having a direct influence on people's health and people's immune systems and protecting people just by being there for them, being calm for them, being their port in a storm. I mean, everybody's not going to feel, we're not all going to feel fabulously calm and influential all the time right now. I'm having times where I feel anxious too, but you can go and hunker down when you need to. Like I said in my email, you can go and hunker down when you need to and just rest and watch movies and drink tea and just like cocoon yourself for a while. And you can also then, when you're feeling strong, get out there virtually and, you know, be a force for good, be a force for calm. And that helps people stay healthy, because part of health is not being stressed out. Stress has an enormous impact on your health, more than I think most of us realize. So stress is not just being stressed out at work. Stress is being anxious for any reason. So we're stressing ourselves out right now when we get anxious about what's going on. So if you can be a force for good at this time, you're directly impacting people's health and again helping it not to spread in another way. So, you know, you can be there for people, however small your audience is. Yes, I think there is going to be a burst of creative potential and arts from this situation. Yeah, look for the positive outcomes. Excellent. No, I don't have a dog. Well, I do have a dog. I can introduce you to my dog. This is Sam. He's a doorstop. I've noticed how I do have a couple of little like toy dogs around the house. I'm like, I've had cats in the past. I've never had a dog. So I'm looking at these going, maybe I should have a dog. Anyway. But the truth is, I travel a lot. So it wouldn't be fair. By the way, his name's Sam after Supernatural. Right. No, I don't have any furry friends because I travel so much. I had a lot of trips planned this year, and it's not really fair on a pet to be going away a lot. So yeah, so I have had cats in the past. I have had a guinea pig in the past. I've had a rabbit in the past. But yeah, it's not. I mean, I live backwards and forwards a bit between here and California, so, or I like to think so. Well, in truth, I have an Airbnb I really like. Yes, I'm a Supernatural fan. Yeah. Anybody who is a Supernatural fan? Yes, Moose. So, if anybody remembers, some years ago, Misha Collins did a Hope to Haiti project with Random Acts. So one of the actors in Supernatural has his own charity, his own nonprofit called Random Acts. And they did a project about 10 years ago, helping out after the earthquake in Haiti. And that was the charity I was raising money for when I first said I would do the peacock dress. So yeah, I went to Haiti twice. And Misha was there. So there is a picture somewhere of me and Misha. So there you are. I haven't been to any of the other conventions now. I haven't met Jensen and Jared, but I have met Misha. I learned English with Supernatural. Awesome. So yeah, some of you, your worlds are colliding now. If you go to the Hope to Haiti website, you'll see me on there. I haven't watched I've watched a little bit of the Great British Sewing Bee, but as I said, I'm just a little bit bored by modern sewing, so yeah. Yes, in fact, Misha Collins is the reason we will have the peacock dress in a roundabout sort of way, yes. Yeah, I told him about it when we were in Haiti. I was like, so there's this dress, and he was like, okay, yeah. He's very very patient with me. Yes, I recommend everybody today go and see Angela Clayton's channel, because she is also making a peacock dress, a Worth peacock dress. It's a different, yes, I did participate in Gish. Well, I'll come back to that. You have to go and see Angela Clayton's channel tonight, because she's making a peacock dress, a different peacock dress. It's difficult to talk and read your comments at the same time. Yes, Angela is making one of the other peacock dresses. Worth made, just to clear this up, Worth made a bunch of different peacock dresses. That wasn't the only one. The fact is, in the 19th century, fancy dress balls were a thing. And so Worth was getting asked all the time to make tons and tons of fancy dress costumes, and they were great at it. And they made couture fancy dress costumes with like full on, I mean, none of this cheap Halloween costumes. They were full on couture costumes with like real jewels and all the rest of it. But they had such a demand for fancy dress costumes that they ended up like having to churn out, you know, hundreds of Marie Antoinettes and hundreds of this and hundreds of that. So there were more than one peacock dress, more than one different type of peacock dress. The one that Angela's making, I believe, was 1860s, so about 40 years before mine. I mean, mine, as in Lady Curzon's. So yeah, there was more than one peacock dress, and I'm loving watching Angela make hers. So yes, what was I saying? Something else distracted me a minute ago about. There was something that stopped me in my tracks, and I said I'd come back to that. Oh, did I participate in Gish? Yes, I did. I will have you know, this is another thing that Misha Collins is just like a movement in himself. He's worth looking up. I think on Instagram he's at Misha, M-I-S-H-A. He is worth following because he is just a very intelligent nutcase, and very funny and very just an incredible human being, and I'm a big fan. But he started running a few years ago the world's greatest the greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. And this involved doing crazy things and taking pictures and competing worldwide in teams for a big prize. And all of it was about making art and doing random acts of kindness. And it was really awesome. There was always a fashion related item. And in the first scavenger hunt, there was an item about making a dress out of actual bacon. I think probably something to do with Lady Gaga's dress. But anyway, they made a calendar of some of the best bacon dresses. And I am in that calendar, ladies and gentlemen. There is a picture of me dressed in nothing but bacon. There is also a picture somewhere of me dressed in nothing but cheese, because the following year it was a cheese dress. So that was, yes, that was a thing. So that's still going, I believe, the scavenger hunt. I'm not involved anymore, but I was involved in the first couple of years. So yes, go and follow Misha Collins. The name of the Worth dress is pale peach with clouds and sunbeams. Actually, it's not that the Worth dresses, they don't necessarily have names. It's more that we give them names that are kind of shorthand. It's more that everybody knows there are some of the Worth dresses that are in museums that are well known. And it's more like, oh, you know, the one with, you know, the one with the peacock feathers on. So I made a dress in 2009 that was covered in garlands of oak leaves and acorns. And I just started calling it, you know, the oak leaf dress. And it's not that the Worth dresses have names of their own. It's more that we give them names as shorthand. So it started, so that dress just became known as the oak leaf dress, just because I was referring to it as the oak leaf dress. So there you are. So hence the confusion about there being more than one peacock dress. It isn't really that there is the peacock dress. It's just that Worth did make lots of peacock dresses, and we just give them names randomly. So the bacon dress, no, it wasn't historically accurate. So look, any word on the ball in Bath? The ball in Bath has been postponed until next year. So those of us making 1890s dresses, those are going to get pushed back a year. So it's going to be next year we'll make those. We'll continue. I think we're going to continue making them, but it will be next year we wear them. Oh, tag me. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know whether Misha would remember me now. It was a long time ago. I don't know, he might. I mean, there were only like 20 of us who went to Haiti each year. I went 2 years, so. Oh. Let's see. Updates on the peacock dress? Oh, please dig up the photos the world needs to see. If I dug them up now, half the people wouldn't know what to do with them. Yeah, I spent an afternoon getting covered in soft cheese. Updates on the peacock dress. I have bought, you may have seen recently on my Instagram stories that I went to a charity shop and I bought some very garish stripy curtains. These are going to be the mock-up for the peacock dress, for the skirt of the peacock dress at least, because I did a mock-up out of a sheet, an old sheet, and it didn't perform very well because the sheet was just, when you make a mock-up of a dress, you're looking to make it, if you possibly can, out of a fabric that's gonna, bye Abby, that's gonna behave similarly to the final fabric. So if you're going to make a dress out of a very, if you're going to make a dress out of a very stiff fabric, there's no point making a mock-up out of a very floaty fabric. And if you're making a dress out of a very floaty fabric, there's no point mocking it up in a very heavy fabric, because it's just not going to behave like the final one, and it's not going to tell you much. So I made my first mock-up out of very thin fabric, and it's not really behaving like the final one will, because the final fabric is going to be heavily embroidered. So there's no real way of making a mock-up out of other heavily embroidered fabric. But the closest thing I could think of with the same sort of weight was blackout lining to go and buy a pair of curtains. So I've literally gone and bought a pair of curtains with blackout lining so that I can make a mock-up of the dress. Part 2 of the videos, that is the next thing to work on right now. This week has gone off the rails a bit because of everything that's going on, and because of the end of the competition, and because we're going into our next enrolment period, which involves a lot of work. So there may be a little bit of a delay on that, but you know, I'm doing 16 things at once here. I'm making the peacock dress, I'm making videos about the peacock dress, I'm running Foundations Revealed, we're wrapping up the competition, we're doing the new free workshop and the new enrolment period. You know, we're getting to grips with just putting the finishing touches on a whole new Foundations Revealed website. So bear with me, I'm working as fast as I can. So yes, I'll have a rainbow mock-up dress. I was thinking of actually using the back of the rainbow curtains, because it's not going to look good on Instagram. You know, it's gonna like mess up my aesthetic. The weight of the peacock dress when it's beaded, allegedly the original one weighs 10 pounds. That sounds like a lot. It isn't a lot compared to dresses of the time, because my oak leaf dress weighs 7 pounds. So it doesn't weigh significantly more because of the embroidery, because of the metal, because it's very thin little coils of gold wire. So it's not like heavy pieces of gold and silver. Whew! Please breathe. Yes. Please breathe. So let's see. Feel free to ask questions. I'm sort of reading comments and trying to trace back the conversation because they're not making sense. I'm trying to find, somebody's trying to answer Spencer's question, but I can't find it. Oh, Spencer says, why are the peacock dresses named peacock dresses? Well, my peacock dress is because the design on it is, the embroidery design is of peacock feathers. And the reason it was peacock feathers was because it was a symbol of British rule over India, because that was the time in history it was. And there was originally, you know, peacock feathers were, peacocks were a symbol of, I think, royalty in India. And the other peacock dress that Angela is making, there is clearly a peacock fancy dress sort of theme. There's a headpiece with a peacock head on it, and there is peacock feathers on the dress itself. So that's more of a literal peacock dress. Where can I find pictures of Kathy in the bacon dress? In a locked vault where nobody goes. I'm not sure whether I've got it anymore. How do I do my hair like this? Go to Bernadette's channel and look for her easy Victorian hairstyle video. It's exactly, I learned it from her. Is there an age limit for Foundations Revealed? No, not really, as long as you've got parental permission, because when you sign up for Foundations Revealed, you're signing up for a monthly subscription. So in order to have a monthly subscription, you need to be able to pay for it with a card, which means you need to be old enough to have a card, or that you need to have a consenting adult giving you the capability to use their payment method. So that's the only thing really holding you back. Oh, I wanted to say I'm halfway through my first corset, and thanks to you and everybody else at Foundations Revealed, it looks damn good, if I might say so myself. Well, thanks. That's you did all the work, Kiki. So that sounds fantastic. I'm excited to see it. Oh, okay. There is somebody, there is a genuine person from India explaining the significance of peacocks in India. I'm trying to find it again because it's scrolling very fast. Oh, I can't find you now. Gosh, I've lost it now, but I did see. I want to read it out. Oh, N. Sharma, there we are. One of our gods wears a peacock feather in his hair. Yes, it's a powerful symbol in India. We aren't supposed to wear them. Oh, I didn't realize that. I know that the peacock dress was significant because it was worn at a ball at the Red Fort in Delhi, and the particular room where it was held, there used to be a peacock throne in that room that was not there anymore. But it was symbolic. It was symbolic of British rule over India at the time. So what we're trying to do, part of the reason to recreate it is we're trying to reintroduce the Indian craftsmanship that was involved. I mean, it's gone through a process. It's been 10 years I've been making it. But one of the most important things about it now is to sort of rewrite the story, not to sort of white out the story of what happened at the time, but I want to bring back the significance of Indian craftsmanship in that dress and the Zardosi goldwork embroiderers. My favourite Worth gown besides the peacock gown. My favourite one at the moment is the one that is being made for the May ball for me. Because I'm working on the peacock dress, Constance Mackenzie is making my dress for the ball, and we're following one of the dresses that's in the big House of Worth book, the big recent book. Right, how do you decide whether to do a 5 or 6 piece corset when you wear specialty bras and don't always follow usual cup sizing? Well, let's see. I'm assuming by specialty bras that you're meaning larger sizes than our standard. I would say if you're larger, you don't specify Foxbane Designs what the specific speciality is. I'm assuming it's plus size, as in larger sizes. For larger sizes, I recommend more pieces because you've got, the more seams you have, the more you can distribute the curves. So you can get a more curvy shape the more seams you have. So I would go for more pieces rather than less in that scenario. Best period costume I've ever seen, either on stage or in a movie. I can talk about the best costume stage play I've ever seen, which was one of my favourite movies. Was originally a stage play that was made into a movie, and then after it was a movie and it won Oscars and all the rest of it, I saw it as a stage play and it was stunning. And that is, it's quite an old movie now, but it won in 1984. It was that movie that won like all the Academy Awards. It won like 9 Academy Awards or whatever. It won Best Film, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, I believe. It was stunning, and it was called Amadeus. And it's a story about, not about the life of Mozart, but it was actually a story about somebody who knew Mozart and his story, so how his story compared. So the thing about Mozart is he's remembered now as being one of the greatest composers who ever lived, but in his own lifetime, he wasn't recognized. He died poor. He's buried in a pauper's grave. So it's a story about the musician in Vienna who was the official court composer at the time, and who was a real person, Antonio Salieri, and his music is still now played as well. And it imagines, the story is an imagining of what Salieri might have felt like, or what the relationship between them might have been, because it's imagining how Salieri might have been both recognizing how special Mozart was and trying to champion him and enable him to make his music, but at the same time being just consumed with jealousy, because all he'd ever wanted, all Salieri had ever wanted, was to be a composer. And yet this kid comes along who is just this genius. And, you know, how do you cope with the jealousy and yet the knowledge that you've got to champion this kid and encourage him? So it's just a beautiful piece of filmmaking, and the costumes are incredible. So I recommend finding Amadeus if you've never heard of it. Yeah, it's very funny and very sad. Yeah. Let's see. First big costume movie I remember seeing on the big screen. Oh, wow, Jenny. I didn't realize that. First costume movie I remember seeing on the big screen was Mary Poppins. And that was when I was probably less than 10. In fact, I have a lovely memory of going to see The Never-Ending Story. I'm saying this because I remember that being a movie I went to see with my grandparents in Dorset. And I have this great memory of going to see The Never-Ending Story with my grandfather, who was an artist and a calligrapher. And I remember coming out of that movie, and my sister and I were quite young. So this was, I think The Never-Ending Story was about the same time, about 84-ish. So I would have been like 9 or 10. And I remember my grandfather saying to us as we walked home, do you understand what was that movie about? He was really quizzing us about what was The Never-Ending Story really about, and trying to make sure that we got the point. And if you've ever seen The Never-Ending Story, it's about not letting your imagination die, you know, fueling your imagination, being creative. And I love how I didn't get at the time necessarily how important that was to him, but remembering that now, it's wonderful to remember how important art and creativity was to my grandfather. He was an art teacher. So anyway. Yeah, I think I was in love with the trio too. Jenny and I have a lot in common. We're very different people, come from very, very different backgrounds. Yes. Okay. So does anybody else have questions? We're over an hour now. I hope everybody's enjoying this. I mean, I can ramble on for as long as you want me to. And in fact, we have to stick around because in just about, I don't know whether you know, just about 50 minutes from now, just about 45 minutes from now, I'm going to be handing over to Karolina Zabrowska, who is also going live tonight with her costume tea party. So she and I planned not to overlap. And, you know, we joked about how we were going to be like, I was going to be handing over to her like a DJ on the radio. So let's see. My Fair Lady Fuel, My Love of Accents. Yes. Excuse me if you're writing long questions. They scroll so fast I don't get through them all. So, voice is doing all right so far. Thank you. Oh gosh. Don't look up a trio today, it ruins it. I know this already about anybody, any person in a historic, particularly a guy in a historical costume movie, don't ever look up the actor because it completely breaks the illusion. Because to see them in modern clothes, to see them in like a t-shirt and a baseball cap, it's like, no. So yeah, not naming any names, but yeah, there have been characters in historical costume dramas that I've been like, oh, but when you look them up, when you look up the actor on Google, it's like, no, don't wear normal modern clothes. You're breaking my illusion. And what other tea brands do I like? Whittards of Chelsea. Who's my favorite author? My favorite author? That's a really good question, because it may not be who you expect. Because you might expect that my brand is all about costume, and that I might say Jane Austen, for example. But I don't read a lot of fiction. I have trouble reading fiction. I have been obsessed since I was 18 with personal development, self-help. So I had a little bit of a, yeah, somebody's named in the chat the person I was thinking of when I said don't look them up in the modern day, because I completely fell in love with him in the historical drama. Anyway, going back to the books. Yeah, so I had what you might call a mental health crisis when I was 18. I was not having fun. I was growing up not heterosexual in a single-sex school, and when I was 18, it came to a head, and that was the moment when I said to myself, something is not right here. I need to learn how to do it. And when it all came to, I'm not ready to talk about that episode yet, but I will one day. Not because I've got a problem talking about it, but because there are people in my family who don't know what happened. So I'm a bit nervous about them finding out, because I've been instructed by one family member, don't ever tell this other family member. So, it's like I can't talk about it yet, but I may do so one day, just because it will help more people. But Penny knows what I'm talking about. So from that time, it was offered at the time, would you like to talk to a psychologist? Would you like to talk to a psychiatrist? And I said, no, because I was very introverted and very within myself. And I was like, why would I want to talk to some random stranger? I should have taken the option to have therapy. I didn't. And instead, I went home and said to myself, I need to figure this out. I recognized it was like a big wake-up call. Something is wrong. I'm not running my brain and heart right. I need some help here. And that was when I went into, like a good Ravenclaw, I went to the bookstore and the library and said, there must be a book out there that can help me with this. So that was when I discovered a chap called Tony Robbins. And I've been reading self-help ever since. And a lot of what I do with you in my YouTube videos, pretty much this stuff just falls out of my mouth, because I've been reading self-help and personal development books since I was 18. And I'm still very much obsessed with that field. As much as I am in love with my sewing and my historical sewing, really underneath it all, my real underlying obsession is with figuring myself out, figuring out mental health, figuring out my psychology. And it's just been, for the longest time, it's just been to figure myself out and to keep myself healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy, so I never have to go back to that place where I was having that crisis. But now, just in the last year, I've started making these videos for you, and I get to share it with you. So my favorite authors, my favorite books I've ever read are probably the self-help books, the most useful books I've ever, and it goes into spirituality as well a little bit, because that's all connected. So my favorite people that I've followed and the books that I've read, I started with Tony Robbins, who is, I mean, I like creating videos for you, partly because much of the self-help and personal development movement is geared towards, a lot of it's sometimes geared towards men and geared towards people who are in business or people in a professional setting, because it's about success and performance, and you know, it's got a very masculine edge to it sometimes. So I like to read that stuff and translate it for myself and translate it for you. Does that make sense? So, you know, some of the books I might tell you about might be stuff that would turn you off completely, but it's been helpful to me. One of the book that's actually coming to mind as my favorite, that has been the most helpful and that I read again now and then, is actually a book I would have to explain a little bit. It's called Conversations with God, and it's by a bloke called Neil Donald Walsh. And you would think that it was a book about religion, but it's not a religiously based book. I'm not saying that as a Christian. I wouldn't count myself as a Christian. I'm more agnostic, but it's a book that, whatever your beliefs, contains a great deal of wisdom about who we are, why we're here, and a great alternative way of looking at the world and looking at our place in it. So it's a book that makes you think, and a book that encourages you to see yourself as a being who is creating your own reality and creating your own world. So that's a whole can of worms. So I don't talk much about that because I don't want to turn off anybody who, I don't want to start talking about spirituality in a way, because everybody has different spiritual beliefs. Everybody has different religious beliefs. So I try to keep what I do universal, but there you go. That's a book that has been very helpful to me. Advice for people wanting to start a YouTube channel but scared to start. The most helpful thing to know about starting a YouTube channel is that A, everybody's scared. It's not just you. So it's like getting over the fear of starting a YouTube channel. That's the only barrier to entry. That's the reason that it's not too crowded a market, because most people are too scared to start. Most people won't start because they're too scared. It's a case of, it's a bit like liquid eyeliner. Starting a YouTube channel is a bit like liquid eyeliner. When I started wearing, and I'm not wearing any today, but when you start doing liquid eyeliner, it looks horrible and it's very difficult to get it right. And you just end up wiping it off and having to do it over and over again. And it looks horrible. But you just realize after a while that you have to get used to just doing it. It's just going to take practice. You have to just vow that you're going to wear this liquid eyeliner every bloody day. And for the first 6 weeks, it's going to suck. But after the first 6 weeks, it's going to start looking better because you're going to get practiced at it. So starting a YouTube channel is the same. Your first few videos are going to be, you're going to be flailing and it's going to be terrible. Yeah, Jenny knows what I'm talking about. Sense and sensibility patterns. You're not going to know what you're doing at the beginning. So you kind of have to be, I mean, it's like you're learning anything. You kind of have to be okay with being terrible at it. Your first YouTube video is not going to be great. You just have to get the first one out of the way, in a way. And you can sort of practice by making a video that you never actually upload. I mean, some of, I think it was Bernadette who first suggested that just try making a video about making a cup of tea. And you might never upload it, but you just get practice at it. And when it comes to talking to camera, it's just a question of getting started and just doing it and doing it and doing it, and you get better and you get more. And you get better mostly because you just get more comfortable. The reason people are not, if you've ever seen somebody who's not very good at doing at being on video, being on camera, mostly the reason they're not very good is because they're nervous. The reason they're not very good is because they're very stiff, or they're trying to be professional. Nobody ever does this. So they're trying too hard, and they're thinking, and they're feeling nervous about it. And that's when you're not very good. So it's just a question of just relaxing. And the way to relax is just to keep doing it. So if you're just okay with your first few videos not being great, just keep doing them and you will get better. And you know, you can go back and look at videos by people who are hugely famous now. I mean, thinking in terms of my field, in terms of business, there's a woman called Marie Forleo who is a rock star now in online business. If you go back and look at her first videos, she was terrible. It was homemade. It just looked so different. But as you keep going, like with sewing projects, as Jenny is saying, like with sewing projects, you just have to start doing it and be okay with the fact that your first sewing project or your first YouTube video is going to be a hot mess. And you just have to be okay with that. Be prepared to make bad art, because there's bad art is what gets you to the good stuff. You know, it's just a question of practice. And this is the problem with when people say, oh, you're so talented. It's not talent, it's skill. It's just that I've been practicing for 30 years. So it's just a case of getting it done, making something. Where do I start? Just start somewhere. Just start doing something. And you will just get better by practicing. And the difference between somebody who is great and somebody who is not is just that they kept going. The only skill you need to get better is just the willingness to keep going. It's almost like you just need to love it enough from the start. If you don't like doing it very much, then fine, you'll set it aside. You won't do it again. You'll go on and try something else. But my only talent in the start of this, when I started sewing, was just I was loving it so much and loving the idea of having control over my own wardrobe. That just the idea that I could make my own clothes and have complete control over my wardrobe was like, poof, this is amazing. So I loved it enough to keep going, even when the stuff I was making was awful. Even when I made that one dress out of poly cotton sheeting, and I knew as soon as it was finished that I was never going to wear this thing, I still got up and made something else. Not because I was forcing myself to get up and make something else, but because I just loved it that much that I couldn't stop. You just, if you have the bug and you just keep making something else, and you don't even really care if your first attempts aren't that great, you just keep getting better and better. Skill versus talent, yeah. I mean, make your own channel, just keep going. Just keep going. Yeah. Well, yeah, making videos is a whole other skill. It's been a new skill for me. I mean, learning to do this, just if you knew how much mentoring went into that voice video. I mean, I made that when Bernadette was in London, and I literally had her sitting next to me on the sofa saying, you know, take that bit out there, put that bit there, and put the music a bit quieter. And I was very lucky that I had her on my side, but she learnt it too. You know, when I started making videos, I had to go back to that beginner's mind and be like, okay, first one's going to be a load of rubbish. I've just got to be prepared to make rubbish. Just make lots and lots of rubbish and it will get better. You know, and every time I make another video, I'm trying to figure out what's the worst thing about the previous video? What's the one little thing that I'm going to do better this time and just improve that? So, you know, it's video editing is a new thing for me. And, you know, I'm keeping them very simple right now. They're just straight to camera, most of them. But you'll notice that I'm starting, particularly with the peacock dress videos, they're going to be a little bit more complex again. So it's just starting simple and getting better and better. I went on a rant and now I've like missed 20 minutes of comments and questions. What do I edit my videos in, Alexandra? I edit my videos in Adobe Premiere Elements. I know Bernadette used Premiere Pro, which is pretty much the professional software. I think Elements is a like cut down version. It's very easy to get started in that. And I believe it's a subscription rather than something you have to. It used to be when you bought software, you had to pay hundreds of dollars, but I think with Adobe Creative Studio, you can pay a small subscription to get a lot of different programs. I know other people, but different people use different programs. I know Abby Cox, the American Duchess people, they use DaVinci, I believe. So, yeah. Foundations enrollment process, I talked about that earlier. Basically, what will happen is hopefully next week, if not the week after, we will have a free video series going up, a free workshop for everybody. And you need to be on the mailing list to see that, which is, if you go into the description of any of my videos, not the live ones, but any of my recorded, pre-recorded videos, you'll see a link to my mailing list. Get on the mailing list, you'll get the emails. There'll be a 3-part workshop, and then that will be free for everybody. And then at the end of it, I will invite you, I'll tell you all about foundations and invite you to join if you want to. So it's basically, everybody gets a great free workshop. Everybody gets to enjoy that. And if you're interested in going further, going deeper, then you go in further. And is Foundations Revealed European historical only? As in European historical dress? Mostly, but we are looking for much more for people to get involved in sharing costume from other cultures a bit more. That is something we'd love to do more of. So it's just a question of finding the experts, finding people who can teach it, and then we'll do it. When am I opening the foundations class again? We're hoping next week, maybe the week after, we'll start that workshop. We'll see. Depends how quickly we finish editing videos. Workshop about, in the past, the last 2 or 3 times, it's been a workshop about corset making. We're doing a new one, which is why I'm being cagey about how long it's going to, when it's going to be released, because Bernadette's still editing it. This time it's going to be about sleeves, because anybody who sews or has been sewing for any length of time knows that sleevilles are one of the most frustrating parts. So we did some live workshops recently on just sleeves. And so we're going to do a workshop that just goes deep on sleeves. I mean, it's very difficult to do everything in one workshop. So we just kind of pick one thing and go deep on that. So there'll be a part one. Part one will be with our mentor, Loana. We have 3 mentors at Foundations who are professionals, who are like the teachers in there, who will give you feedback on your own projects. Loana will be doing pattern adjustments, how to modify your patterns to fit properly. Then Barbara Paisendorfer, who you may have seen in Bernadette's pat stitching video. She is one of our mentors. She will be doing how you actually set a sleeve in properly. Like she's a master tailor, so she's doing like the full lowdown on the process of how you set a sleeve in properly. And then in the 3rd video, Luca, who is just a world expert on Victorian women's clothing, he's showing us how 1880s and 1890s sleeves work, how they're really done properly. And he is great at noticing details in the real Victorian sleeves that nobody really does and nobody really notices. He's got this amazing ability to go back to the fashion plates, the original garments and the patterns, and say, look at that bit there. That's why it works. And that fits over just like that. And doesn't it look nicer that way? And we're all like, oh, I never noticed that. And when you see pictures of Luca's costumes, oh my, it's just costumes to die for. So yes, thank you. Yes, my voice is getting stronger. This is helping. Practice is helping. Part of the reason it wasn't getting better was because I live quite an isolated lifestyle. I live on my own, so I'm not, and I work from home. So I have to find opportunities to actually talk to people. So this is good for me, getting to talk and getting practice. Oh, so I'm doing pretty well. We're like 85 minutes in. So we're going to go to nearly up to the hour, which is when Karolina Zabrowska is going to start her costume tea party. So yeah, we're going to show you up onion. We're going to show you how to do sleeves properly. Because basically everybody finds sleeves difficult. It's not because they are difficult as such, they're tricky, but it's because most people don't know, most people are missing a lot of steps. There's a bunch of steps. I mean, basically, to give you a spoiler, what Barbara is going to be doing, particularly in the second video, is showing that there's a bunch of stuff you can do with the armhole before you even set the sleeve in. There's a bunch of like, it's like we're missing steps. The reason sleeves are so hard is because we're missing steps. So she's like, as a master tailor, she's able to show us how it all works. Oh, fantastic. Well done on felling seams. Yeah, discording with, yeah, I could do that. Oh, hello, Minnesota. Heard things are getting bad health-wise in the UK. Yeah, in the UK, we are in a place right now where the cases are going up. The exponential curve is starting to happen. They're at the stage of doing that sort of voluntary isolation, voluntary staying home, and people aren't always listening. Most of my neighbours went to work today, judging by the number of cars that were gone. They have now closed the schools tonight. Today was the last day of school. So that's giving me some peace, because I know my nephew's going to be home from school now. But yeah, I think we're getting to the point where we're going to need, mandatory lockdown. And I'm hoping that that's coming soon, because I locked down from this time from Thursday last week. And I feel like I was a bit ahead of the curve because I was reading up last week. Most people in Britain are a bit behind with realizing that this is a big deal. So yeah. So was somebody asking who Luca is? I see somebody explaining who Luca is. Will I ever write a book? I think I probably will. I feel like that's in my future. Feel free to suggest what my book should be about, because there are a number of things I could write a book about. Yeah, didn't realize how much I was missing a tailor's ham until I got one, says Jen, yes. Nicole, yeah, in the usual manner is the bane of my crafting existence. I have a book that gives you all the details. Most of the tailoring books I've seen are intended for people who knew what they were doing already in sewing. Those missing pieces, I mean, we don't learn, this is what I'm going to be saying in the free workshop, we don't learn to sew from our mothers and grandmothers anymore, not all of us anyway. We don't learn to sew at school anymore. So there are a lot of missing pieces in our knowledge about sewing. So I have a wonderful book that was written in 1897, and it was intended to teach the teachers how to teach young children to sew. I mean, how to teach babies, not babies literally, but like how to teach the little kids to sew. And it literally goes from, have I got one here? I haven't got a thimble in the room, but anyway, the first lesson is literally, here's a thimble, and like the children are told to pick up the thimble, show the hand, put the thimble on the finger, hold it up to show the teacher, and then put it down again. And all the children in the class are lifting up the hand, putting the thimble on the finger, holding it up, taking it off again, and putting hand and folding their arms. And it's teaching sewing right from the absolute beginning for little children. So the wonderful thing about this book is that it not only teaches you how to sew and how the Victorians sewed from first principles, but it also teaches the teacher how to teach it. So it's literally saying, we show the children how to do this, and then tell the children that this is why we do this. Tell the children that these are the 3 reasons why we do this. Reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. So it gives you the complete information. It's called Needlework and Cutting Out by Agnes Walker. And I've been toying with the idea of sort of translating it into YouTube. Because like many Victorian books, it's very dense with the text and not many drawings. So even this book is saying it's got more drawings than most in that period. So, I mean, Victorian texts can be difficult to read, especially if English is not your first language, because the language is just more flowery and a bit different to how we speak today. So I would love to take that book and just sort of, oh, I am a teacher, and just to take that book and sort of translate it into YouTube or translate it into modern, because I think a lot of us, even if we're very experienced with sewing, I've been sewing for like 30 years now, nearly, not quite, nearly 30 years. And I feel like even though I learned a little bit from my mum, a little bit from my grandmother, a little bit from my other grandmother, a little bit at school, I actually did go to an old-fashioned girls' school where they taught us to sew a little bit. But I still feel like I've sort of picked it up as I went along. And I feel like, tell me if you feel the same. I feel like, wouldn't it be amazing to go back to either a Victorian school or a Victorian sewing, a Victorian dressmakers, or the Worth Atelier, or, you know, the Dior Atelier in the 50s, and like have them actually teach me. I would love to, I mean, even me as a 30 years of sewing, I would love to literally learn to sew from the beginning, like how to do it properly. You know what I mean? And I think that's, I mean, particularly because I know in the Victorian era, they sewed in a different way and a much more detailed way. And there are things I've picked up that we don't necessarily need to do and things that we don't do that we should do. And I know that Dior in the 50s started going back to the methods. I can't remember where I heard this from, so this is hearsay and I can't give you a reference. I hear that Dior went back to the Victorian era and was using Victorian sewing methods. So that now, I said this in the Costume College video, didn't I? So Dior was basically inventing couture based on Victorian sewing methods. So basically what we think of now as the ultimate couture methods of sewing, that's Victorian sewing methods. So this is presumably Victorian sewing is how you do it properly. On the other hand, there is a certain level where the Victorians went too far and were a bit too anal retentive with it, because you'll see in the book, yeah, Jalea feels the same. 50, sewing for 35 years and still feel like a fraud. So yes, bring back Dior, yes. Pretty sure Bernadette has the TARDIS parked in her kitchen. Yeah, I would say so. What was I saying? So yes, the book Victorians also went too far, because when you look at their instructions, some of their instructions in that book are about how many stitches there should be to the inch. And you measure an inch and how many stitches there should be, and you're like, really? That's like, I forget how much it is, but it's like 12 stitches to the inch. I'm like, what? That can't be. And you have to also learn to sew from them with also the mentality in mind, which I think I learned from Luca, which is in the late Victorian era, you got to remember that sewing machines were just becoming a thing. Yes, Jackie is just saying it in the chat. So because the sewing machine was becoming a thing, hand sewing sort of got kind of fetishized in a way, in that, ooh, hand sewing, real hand sewing. And the people who were into hand sewing were trying to make sure that hand sewing was still considered to be a thing, and a thing that was separate and better than machine sewing. So they were very fastidious about like the tiny stitches and how many there should be to an inch. So it's going to be, yeah, pass over 2 threads between stitches. You're like, really? So it's going to be, I think it's going to be like partly informative and partly hilarious to be trying to do this. So yes, so my other, what's the age that you would learn to sew to make clothes from Victorian history? Well, I think Agnes Walker was like suggesting teaching 6-year-olds. I mean, you can teach people to sew at a very young age with, you know, a piece of very loosely woven fabric and a tapestry needle, not a tapestry needle, like a bodkin, a kind of one of the, am I thinking of a tapestry needle as opposed to a chenille needle? One of the bodkins with like, that hasn't got a point on it, basically. I learned to sew very early because I remember being bought a little sort of embroidery kit, like a child's needlepoint kit. So it had this sort of that Aida fabric that you use for cross stitch with the big holes in it, the plasticky fabric with big holes. And there was a big, thick bodkin that was blunt and wool and like yarn. And you would sew, you would do needlepoint with the yarn. So, you know, I learned that very young. I don't remember how young, but yeah. So I love the idea of doing that. I think we should teach beginners Victorian sewing. I think that would be fun. And I'm also, you know, warning up front, I'm left-handed. So you'll be learning left-handed. So we've talked about whether it's feasible for me and Bernadette to do it together, because I would be doing it left-handed and she would be doing it right-handed. Yeah, tapestry needle with, yeah, my friend is doing exactly that with a 4 or 5-year-old. I'm going to start reading comments again because it really, it pains me that I don't get to read the comments afterwards because they just disappear. But it looks like you're into the idea. The only thing holding me back with doing this kind of thing is, I'm sure you've heard by now, video editing is hugely time consuming. So I am a person, you know, I'm CEO of a business. I have 9 people working for me. So it's a big deal. Missing pieces, yes. In agreement with Bernadette. So I'm just reading back some comments before we go. We're going to be signing off when we get up to the hour to go over to Carolina. But yeah, the book is incredible. And it has not only learning to sew right from this is a thimble. And interestingly, the first lesson is, notice how the first lesson is not about the needle and thread, it's about thimble. If anybody knows how to save this chat, I would love to save it and read it later when my full attention can be on it. Yep, 12 to 14 stitches an inch according to my memoir. Yeah. Dolly Madison nearly went blind counting stitches on white work projects. Yeah, I feel you. Let's see. Excuse me going quiet while I read your comments. I'm depending on you, Bernadette and Jenny, to tell me like afterwards what the general flavour of the conversation was, because I'm not able to keep up. Oh, yay! Edited my first video yesterday. Well done, Wombat. It's scrolling too fast for me to keep up. I've never been to the Royal School of Needlework. I would love to go. That's one of those, oh God, I must do that. But I have been to a lot of courses at the School of Historical Dress, which is stunning. Yeah, I edited my first video yesterday, one that says a classroom rules video for students who are being homeschooled. I hated it. Dashed my dreams of a YouTube channel. It is the first time you edit a YouTube video, you will hate it because it's a learning curve. Let me tell you. I mean, even getting the technology to all work together. I mean, we were watching we have a WhatsApp group for some of the costumers, and Zach was in there just tearing his hair out trying to edit that one first video he's done. But yeah, that's for everybody. Can I hire an editor? Yes, I could. Yes, I could. And a lot of the entrepreneurs I do and the business people I know do that for videos like the little ones I do. I could do it for that. But I also believe in what Bernadette says, about how the editing is part of the artistry of it. And you can see how in Bernadette's videos, how she edits them together and how she creates them is very much part of it. She isn't just, you know, the actor on screen when she's not acting, but she isn't just the face on screen. How she edits it together is part of her art form. All right. Yes, School of Historical Dress may not have classes running this summer. They usually do them spring and autumn. The spring ones have obviously been cancelled, but there may be more in the autumn. They're usually like March and October, I believe. Bernadette can confirm that. Yes. Proud lefties. All right. Oh, does it keep keep the comments? All right. Okay. Any more questions before we go? We've got about 10 minutes left at the most. Or I could break up 5 minutes early and give you a bathroom break. Okay, Bernadette says they postponed spring at the School of Historical Dress, to be decided what's happening in summer. Perhaps the School of Historical Dress could teach online. There is a can of worms, let me tell you. The thing about the School of Historical Dress is that Jenny, the principal, is very concerned to teach people by letting them handle and see real original garments in person. So she's very enthusiastic about teaching small groups of students in person. So yes, I believe I agree that there could be online classes. And yeah, Bernadette is just like laughing uproariously. So yeah, Jenny is not enthusiastic about teaching large groups because she's just passionate about teaching small groups, hands-on in the room with the extant objects. We're working on it, is all I can say. So yeah, who knows whether that will happen. In the meantime, they have wonderful books you can buy and just stay on their mailing list. Okay. So could we have a link to the next live chat at 8 o'clock? I don't think I can link to it until it started. And in order to go and see it, I would have to come out of this. So I think if you just go to Karolina Zabrowska's channel and keep refreshing, it will show up. Is it scary to watch your old videos after a period of time? I try not to, but I probably could in order to remind myself how far I've come. Well, thank you. Thank you, Curdy, for being here. 1660s. 1660s dress for my research project. Is patterns of fashion the best place? If I was doing this live in my sewing room, I would reach out and pull out my patterns of fashion and tell you. But yes, I believe, if I remember correctly, there is a 1660s dress. Yes, there is. I'm sure there is. The Claydon House one is in there, I think. Let's see. Good books on Edwardian clothing. Well, it depends what sewing level you're at, and how much detail you want. How Edwardian clothing is made. With the construction, Abby, for the actual sewing techniques, how they were really done in the day, the best book you can get is, you're welcome, Julia. Hi, Julia. The best book you can get is called Authentic Victorian Sewing Techniques, which is a reprint of an actual Victorian book. It comes with a caveat that it is an original book, so it is like walls of text from a time when people had a much longer attention span, and there aren't many pictures. So again, that's another book that I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be great to translate this into YouTube or translate it into modern articles of some sort? So anyway. Clara Drumes. I don't know what age or experience or, field you're in. She says she's just moved to London and is struggling for money. I would say, in general, if you're having trouble and you're thinking about future employment and security, start looking into online business. It's going online. Those of us who are in online businesses right now feel like we're way ahead of the curve because our business is unaffected by what's going on. I'm at work as usual. So start looking at, let's see, where would you start? Actually, what you can do is if you stay on my mailing list, in the autumn, in September, my mentor will be doing a workshop much like mine and doing an enrollment into his program about starting an online business and teaching what you know. So I will probably this year sort of promote that to my mailing list. So in the meantime, if you have something that you would like to sell online, whether it's your artwork or your sewing, or you have some skill that you would like to teach online, go and look up a book called Launch by Jeff Walker. He is my mentor in business. And when you read his method, product launch formula about how to launch something online, you will recognize that method because it's what we do with Foundations Revealed. The book is called Launch and it's by Jeff Walker. Let me write that in the chat. And he's on YouTube as well. You can see his videos. And don't be put off by the sort of spammy, clickbaity title. It's a great book. His heart is in the right place. He's a good guy. So there you are. So it is 5 to 8 in Britain. I should do a video on my favorite books, shouldn't I? In fact, I should do a video on just general cool stuff in my sewing room. After the sewing retreat that Bernadette and I did, I've got so much cool stuff in there to show you that I've collected over 30 years. So I think we're going to start wrapping up here. But yeah, let me know, always let me know what you want to learn more about, because I can teach you about your mental and emotional health and personal development. I can teach you about sewing. I can teach you about online business and how to start a business online. So always let me know what you're interested in. So there we are. So quarantine book club, good idea. Yes. All right, we're going to wrap this up here. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for giving me 2 hours of your time. I don't take that lightly. You know, I value the fact that in in a world where there's lots of things that you could be focusing on right now, you came and spent 2 hours with me. So thank you. I'm very flattered, and I always appreciate your attention and your love. Thank you. So love to you too. And let's all get over to Carolina's channel for her tea party. See you soon. Right. Now I've got to end this thing effectively like I didn't do last night. Where is the button that says end live stream? How do I end it? There's supposed to be a button saying end so that it doesn't go on forever. Hi chat, no. Help! Help! Last night I logged out of the winners announcement in Zoom and the YouTube kept going. I can't figure out how to stop it. There's no button saying end. Bernadette, WhatsApp me, tell me how to do this. Oh, go into videos in YouTube Studio. Okay, hang on. We got this. Why is there not a button on the page? View in live control. Why is this such a roundabout thing? End stream. Woo! Found it.